Well, the Council of State has called for the residents of the Caribbean countries within the kingdom to feel more equal to those in the Netherlands. The Council emphasized that all citizens with Dutch nationality should be granted active voting rights for the House of Representatives. Additionally, there is a need for greater representation for appointed ministers in the Kingdom Council of Ministers, you're saying in a press release. First of all, help us to understand as to how the Council of State came to that conclusion.
Well, there's a lot of discussion about inequality between citizens with a Dutch passport. If you compare the situation of the people living in the Netherlands and living in the Caribbean countries. So we've been talking a lot about the democratic deficit for donkey years, actually. And the democratic deficit exists at different levels. And there is at least one level where we, after studying the dossier, have decided that, well, it would be actually very easy to take away the democratic deficit by granting voting rights to all Dutch citizens, so holders of Dutch passports, regardless of where they live. It is already the case for people who live outside of the Netherlands and not in the Caribbean countries that they can vote. So it is actually very strange that you would be able to vote in theory on the French side, but not on the Dutch side. So that's the reason we came up with this challenge to the Kingdom Council of Ministers as an advice.
And of course, you're making a series of recommendations as the 70th anniversary of the signing of the Charter for the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which establishes the fundamental structure of the kingdom and the formal relationships between the Netherlands, Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin to be observed sometime in December. How do you convince or how do you foresee the Kingdom Council of Ministers at least taking into consideration your recommendations?
Well, it depends on the different recommendations that we've made. As far as it goes to, let's say, giving the vote to all citizens holding a Dutch passport, it's a matter of principle. It's a matter of confirming the equality between all holders of Dutch passports, regardless of where they live, so whether they live in the Caribbean countries or not, because the parliament that is chosen in the Netherlands is actually the Kingdom Parliament. It doesn't say so in the Charter, but in fact, how it works out, this is the Parliament that votes for the Kingdom laws.
I'm sure you would agree that the relationship between the Netherlands and the countries in the Caribbean part of the kingdom has been deteriorating for quite some time now. You stress greatly on equality within the kingdom. Do you foresee this being achieved?
Well, let's at least aspire to go there. If you do nothing, it will never happen. And actually, yes, I agree with you that there has been a lot of tension between the Netherlands and the Caribbean countries. But actually, I see that the collaboration that is taking place based on the Landspakketten is actually moving to the benefit of all parties, so of the countries as well. It is their agendas that are being put forward and are working together. And I can say I don't want to talk about political level because I'm not a political person, but it is clear that at the civil servant level, a lot is happening, and the collaboration actually between all countries of the Kingdom of the Netherlands is quite good at the moment.
The issue of equality within the kingdom has been addressed for quite some time now, Mrs. Van der Sloot. We have to take into consideration the fact that interest groups have also raised that as a result of the inequality within the kingdom. How do you sell this to the Kingdom Council of Ministers?
Well, listen, there is a matter whether you call something unequal. From an objective point of view, there have always been tensions between the countries. And it's a result of the fact that you have three small countries in the Caribbean and you have a big country on the other side with more inhabitants, more economic possibilities, and size matters if you want to achieve stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So there is not a matter of, let's say, equality is an objective fact, but that doesn't have to say anything about the value of being equal. So the equivalence, we have to be considered equivalent to Dutch citizens living in the Netherlands.
And of course, against this backdrop, the Council of State, which you're part of, calls for strengthening the position of the appointed ministers from Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin in the Kingdom Council of Ministers. Elaborate a bit more on that for us.
Yes, well, to be able to effectively fulfill the task of a Council of Ministers, in the Council of Ministers, the Minister Plenipotentiary needs to have a certain background, needs to be able to fully understand what's being discussed, etc., needs to know the lay of the land from a political point of view, and have a diplomatic approach, but also needs to be able to build and maintain relationships, whether it is within the kingdom or outside, with the embassies and so on and so forth, and with the European Union, all in the benefit of our country, St. Martin.
Mm. Another interesting point raised in the recommendation as it has been presented is the fact that you're calling for cooperation within the kingdom to at least focus on education and poverty alleviation.
Yes, this is one of the things that we see. You see the difference that's taking place between the country Sebastasia, Bonaire, in the field of healthcare, for example, and in the field of education. And, if we don't catch up as countries, like the country St. Martin, we'll stay behind. You need educated, well-educated people. You need to build up your youth to live up to the best potential they can achieve, for the future of the country. And you need to make sure that there is a perspective for them to come back to the country, to help build the country. And the same for poverty. If you have to think every day about how you are going to feed your children, you have no time to think about, okay, if I now want to make sure that I vote for the right person, that's not on your mind. Yeah. Maybe, if you sell your vote, you can do some groceries, but that's not a strong civic society.
And finally, if I may, the dispute resolution regulation has also been highlighted. This, we know, has been also a topic of discussion for a number of years now. Apparently, there is no end in sight to the ongoing discussion. Your take?
My take on this is that we're, as Caribbean countries, we have the tendency to overcomplicate the situation, to overregulate it. At the end of the day, if you look at how often there are disputes between the countries which cannot be solved, because that's an important thing, because we keep on talking. But if we have situations, there are not that many. And I can point you to the situation with financial supervision laws. I think that is in the 14 years, I believe there have been 4 cases that people did not agree and brought the case in the Netherlands. And if you look at the outcome of those cases, well, it's 50-50. It's not as if the Dutch government won every time. So we overcomplicate it with forgetting that when it is a discussion between the countries and the Netherlands, it is not only a legal matter. It is quite often a combination of legal matter and setting priorities for policies and so on and so forth.
I said finally, but what role did the islands played in the advice as has been presented?
Okay, now we have consulted very early on and during the process with the councils of advice of all of the countries, so Aruba, Curaçao and St. Martin, with the governors, the directors of the governors, and we have talked with let's say, scholars which have studied these topics in depth. We have deliberately not spoken to the body politic because the advice is to the Kingdom Council of Ministers and by consequence also the parliaments of the countries. So it would not have been correct of us to consult them on an advice, but we have consulted with the councils of advice.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah. Your social health insurances.
It's hurricane season. Are you prepared? Here are a few tips to keep in mind to help keep you and your family safe. The Atlantic hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th, with the peak occurring between mid-August and late October. This hurricane season, be sure to put together a go bag. A disaster supply kit including a flashlight, batteries, cash, first aid and supplies, medications, and copies of your critical information if you need to evacuate. This public service announcement was brought to you by the government of St. Martin.
We move to TIAC. We speak of the tourist tax. I would like to know, is it the intention of the government to continue the process? Indeed, there was no said, so I understand the minister's reasoning for removing it. We still have to go through the process, so more than likely, 100% it won't be for 2024 budget, understood. We see the vending villages, there's a reduction by 200,000. When the minister was here, she said there were no increases or decreases, but she also withdrew that statement and asked for a period of a week or two to give us answers. Now we see in the budget there is a significant reduction. Also, what bothers me is the reduction in online marketing, online agencies, and also the beautification process, the improvement, the product development. There's a cut in product development in online agencies that bothers me because we have the FCCA coming here in a couple of weeks, and we speak of product development, but that was one of the main key points, through you, Madam Chair, one of the main key points when I attended the FCCA that was brought forward. When asked about the survey, as to why tourists do not return to St. Martin, the number one reason was, one, traffic, two, there was no new attraction, and three, of course, they found that the place was not clean compared to other countries. We have to start to put these little things in progress. So what may seem small can affect our tourist product. And the reason I say this, Madam Chair, through you, is I hear the Minister of Finance speak of revenue generating. I do not see revenue generating products here in the budget. I don't see it. But as a Minister of Finance, you generate revenue through taxations. If there's another way, I'd like for the Minister of Finance to explain how she plans to, through you, the Honorable Minister of Finance, plans to generate revenue other than taxation, because I know TIAT is very much responsible for revenue generations. So we have to be very careful on what we cut and how we cut. I would also like to know specifically, what is the cost or was the cost of the Causeway Bridge loan? I need to know the amount for the Causeway Bridge loan. I need to know what is the balance on this loan and how much years remain for this loan.
because I know that there are several housing project initiatives that I initiated under different mixes, so to speak. But I'd like to zoom in on the one particular that is being handled via the trust fund. I know that there was discussion about it being halted, it started back, etc. I realize that for the last couple of months, they're very quiet on it. I would like to know through you, Madam Chair, what is the update on the housing project that is earmarked for the Hope Estate? We were able to secure the property. So I would like to know if there's any update on that from the government with respect to that housing project. We know that there's a dire need for housing here in St. Martin, especially social housing. So I'd like to get an update on that. Madam Chair, through you, there's also another concern that I've had over the last couple of years that I brought up in different forms of fashion, but I've never seen it materialize. Through you to the minister, well, I will almost have to look back to the Minister of Justice, but to the Ministry of Justice, I would like to know how open the government is for allowing not only ex-police officers, but let's say ex-uniform officers that have the permission to carry firearms while executing their duty, and they are retired, that they're allowed to have the firearm for 5 years. The reason why I ask that, Madam Chair, is because just to use the example of a police officer, they serve for 30, 40 years in certain instances, create enemies across lines, and then when they retire, you're telling them to just go home and fend for themselves. I would like to know if a special budget can be allocated for that. Again, like I say, it's not as if 50 or 30, 40 officers are going on retirement at one time. If a structure can be put in place to be able to allow them to be able to have a firearm in order to protect themselves once they retire. I move on, Madam Chair, to the Ministry of VROMI, through you. I am finally, and I'm glad, and I must commend the ministry, that I'm seeing the road works, the main road project actually had a kickoff a couple days ago, although very late in my humble opinion because these documents were signed by my person before even leaving. But nevertheless, we're here now. I saw that it started in Point Blanche, and I hope that maybe a structured schedule can be published as to where's next. We fought tooth and nail as a form of government to secure these funds for the capital expenditure, and I would like to just get a clear detail as to the road of priorities. One of the roads that I put a lot of emphasis on over the last couple of years is the road, Arch Road, so to speak, connecting to Madam Estate. That road is in one of our most deplorable roads on the island, and I hope that that has not been taken off the priority list. I do remember, however, and this is a question through you, Madam Chair, that back in the days, an agreement was made with the government, I think it was in 2013 or 14, when the Causeway project, that the port would pave Union Road. I don't think that that ever materialized. And then we shifted the agreement to have the port contribute to paving of the road in Point Blanche. Now I see that the government is paying to do the road in Point Blanche, but I didn't hear anything about the agreement that was made. Maybe it is the case that the port is collaborating, but I would like some clarity on that if it is the case. And if not, how then will the port contribute to our infrastructure as was the agreement made back in 2013, if I'm not mistaken?
It's hurricane season. Are you prepared? Here are a few tips to remember to help keep you and your family safe. 6 hours before hurricane strikes, remember, if you're not in an area that is recommended for evacuation, plan to stay at home or where you are and let friends and family know where you're located. close storm shutters and stay away from windows. Flying glass from broken windows could injure you. Turn your refrigerator or freezer to the coldest setting and only open it when necessary. If you lose power, food will last longer. Keep a thermometer in the refrigerator to be able to check the food temperature when the power is restored. For the latest weather updates and emergency instructions, turn on your TV and/or radio and visit stmartingov.org. This hurricane season, remember, it only takes one. This public service announcement was brought to you by the government of St. Martin.
SXM, your social and health insurance. SXM, your social and health insurance.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your MySXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah, your social and health insurances.
Looking through the budget, I have a lot of questions. I'm going to send those questions in writing to the minister. I'm going to make a general statement, and I'm going to explain to the minister what I mean with the statement by using an example. And then by every point, the minister would be able to give me a reply on what actually took place there. And I'm going to pick an example from the Ministry of TIAT, where the tourism marketing initiatives went from 2.5 million to 2.4 million. What I'd like to know and what I've not seen in the budget, what was taken away. So for example, let's say that the ministry had plans to do marketing in the Caribbean and also in Guyana. And they now decided we're going to ask the company that is doing the marketing in Guyana, in the Caribbean, to also do marketing in Guyana. That caused the price to go down because we didn't need a separate company to do that. That's what I'd like to see with all the points that I'm going to send to the minister, so I could understand what was actually taken away, because it is extremely important. When I think about business, and I think government is a business, if you don't take care of your people, you will get no work done. The jobs and the positions that were budgeted for in the beginning were positions that are needed. And if they were taken away, and I do understand that if it was budgeted for the year, and we are now in September, October, so that amount was taken away, but are the jobs still available? Where and how have we been recruiting? What jobs are missing? Where have we been looking? Because I still get a lot of emails and CVs, people asking, looking for jobs. So that is extremely important to know. Madam Chair Lady, I've heard other members of Parliament ask, what are the ideas that every ministry has to increase to the coffers of government? I would like to suggest something else. I would like to suggest that one day, sits closed-door meeting with the members of Parliament, and let's brainstorm. Let's have dialogue as the representatives of St. Martin and come up with ideas where we would know right away, hey, this can work, this can't work, what is needed, where does COM need the members of Parliament,
and where the members of parliament, how the members of parliament could assist COM, because the only way we're going to reach anywhere is by doing it together. So my whole idea is not here to sit and bash the government's cuts, but I want to understand how and why these cuts.
It says in the toelichting in 2.6, it says that the GB is looking for a loan of $30 million. In the presentation from the minister, it says that there's a loan for $75.6 million. So I would like to confirm, is it $30 million for the loan or the $42 million? Or is it that we are taking out a loan for GB, and GB is also looking for an additional $30 million? You can look for it on page 154 in the toelichting. In that same toelichting, it mentions that GB commits to delivering audits for the fiscal years up and including 2022 and 2024. And I wonder if that deadline has been set for that. And what happens if GB does not deliver these audits, Madam Chair? What is the consequences for GB if they do not deliver these audits? Also, I see from, and these are some of the questions also posed by the Legal Affairs Department, and I don't see them answered. Who exactly is taking out the loan? Is it under the Ministry of Vrummy or General Affairs? It also states about the start and end date. Does this mean that the agreement between GB and the government begins on November 1st, 2024? Or does it mean that GB will begin making the monthly payments from November 2024? It also, the Prime Minister, Madam Chair, mentioned, and I believe in the presentation from the Minister of Finance, I stand to be corrected, it was mentioned that we will take out a loan and then lease it to GB. So one confirmation, are we leasing it to GB, or are we taking a loan for GB and allowing GB then to purchase the engines? Because that's two different things. So is government taking a loan, buying the engines, because that's what the Prime Minister basically said yesterday, and then leasing the engines to GB? Or are we doing a similar situation like what we did when we were there with the airport, where we got financing and basically gave the loan to the airport? So which one is it? Are we leasing it? It was said leasing yesterday, and I believe also today. Which one is it? And now, if we are leasing it, that means the asset goes by us. The asset should then be reflected by us. I don't see anywhere in the budget where the insurance for the engines are, or where it would come from. So I don't see the insurance for the asset that we're leasing covered in the budget. Can this be made clear to me? Where is this insurance taken up? What is the potential cost for us of insuring these engines? If it's going to be loaned to GB, like what we did with the airport, would be considered a similar system as the reflows. So then what interest rate then are we expecting then? With the airport, the government is getting money back, the reflows. So if we're going to loan to GB and say at 5%, are we then loaning, and let's say we get a loan of 4%, 5%, are we then loaning this to GB at 6% and making a gain? Madam Chair, when we were doing the airport refinancing, we looked at different options. I would like to know from the government, were there no co-financing options available? Were there no co-financing options available? Were there no public-private partnerships available? In between 2022 and 2023, when I was minister, then MP Helga Martin kept insisting on a specialist financier, Mr. Medina. I think I forwarded to, it's actually in Parliament. I've asked this question before to you, Minister of Finance. I would like an update on this. The MP it can't be for me that as a member of parliament, you had all the solutions. You were able to come up with a concept to be able to refinance our COVID loans, but now you have the opportunity to execute this, and now the idea is gone. So my question is, have you had a discussion with Mr. Medema? Have you had a discussion with Mr. Blackman? Have you had a discussion with the Minister of TIAT concerning the refinancing of our COVID loans? And Mr. Medema, that question also goes to the current Minister of TIAT. Is she taking up her own idea and own concept of this? Also during this period of time, the transaction tax. In no way in the budget I see any preparation for the transaction tax. Nowhere where it's budgeted, it's not in the toolkit. So is that no longer the almighty Hail Mary savior for us when it comes to generating revenues? Because what we see in the budget now is cuts, 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 yes. But when it comes to money making, generating revenues, all the great ideas for the last 4 years just disappear. We had so many great ideas, but now we see none reflected from the MPs that went into ministry to be able to execute. I saw in the paper, in a local paper a few weeks ago, that the government lost the court case for the tax system. What I also recognize is that the government did not appeal, which is very, very interesting. So there was a court case for tax system. We had the opportunity to appeal. We did not appeal, but yet the next day brought out an article saying that we withdraw everything. Yes, it was part of the judgment, but we had the opportunity to appeal. So what is the impact now on our tax systems? Because we have a lot of questions today about money generating and tax legislation, but if we're going to have another delay of 2 to 4 years on the tax system, where are we now? What is the current plans